I am so happy my name's Alan Steinfeld, and I'm so happy. Well, how many people are here for the first time, really? Wow, amazing. You are in for a real treat with an incredible moderator. Adam Apollo knows it all. He's put it all in this little computer here and is reformatting it so the world can know what the future looks like. And I'm so happy he is hosting this incredible panel. Let's give, when he stands up for a second, let's give Adam Apollo a big, big hand for being here.
Thank you so much, Alan. He's so gracious. He's literally in the audience, and he's like, I'll come up and introduce you. Welcome, everybody, to the Conscious Life Expo. Yes, day one. We're starting in hot. This is the first panel, and we're going to go deep into the magic of sound and frequency. For after all, isn't everything vibrating? Isn't it all coherent, raptured, vibratory fields just kind of holding and suspending us in place here and there? Aren't we all just constantly giving each other massages by speaking to each other? Right? Just a little bit of my voice in your ear down that canal, just to stimulate that little bit of brainstem, turning it into some magic. So today, I have some amazing guests on this panel, and special guests as well. Mic okay? I noticed it's kind of coming in and out a little bit. Guys? You hearing that too? Yeah. Yeah, could you just give me a little check, because I'm same distance and it keeps kind of going down a little bit. We just want that to be nice and tight, so that you guys can really feel my full body massage. All right? So, of this incredible, amazing group, I'm going to start right here with the man to my right, Chris Rael. He's a guide in the realms of ether physics, serving humanity through bridging the seen and unseen realms. He seeks to offer clarity on misunderstood yet fascinating topics like gravity, the ether, teleportation, time, etc., which, as a unified physicist myself, speaks very deeply to my heart. So give him a hand. Welcome, Chris, please. To his right, a woman who needs no introduction, Sarah Breskman-Cosme. She is an expert hypnotist, hypnotherapist. Essentially, she's also an incredible author who takes people on journeys through time and helps to uncover the true secrets of our history through people going into deep states and uncovering the magic of their higher self. So give Sarah Breskman-Cosme a welcome, please. To her right, we have Torquem G. He's a sound healer, electronic music producer from LA. I've known this man for around a decade, and he's been facilitating group sound healing experiences for at least that long. So just an absolutely profound individual, and his sort of renaissance multidisciplinary research around sound medicine has put people in deep, deep states of consciousness. He can do this with very little effort. He uses 432 tuning. He's worked on apps and healing centers, and his clients have included people like P. Diddy, Ryan Garcia, and of course, the vampire slaying legend, Wesley Snipes. Okay. Then on our end down there, we have Mr. Robert Koch. Robot Coach? Yes? Got it?
Robert Koch.
Robert Koch. Got it. It looks like robot, but it's Robert. And Koch, yeah. I guess robot is the professional.
Robot is the artist name.
Got it. Okay, so you can just call him Robot. It's fine. He's got over 100 million streams on Spotify. This guy is a legend. He's won countless awards. I'm definitely not going to list because it would take up the entire time of the panel. He's an artist and composer from Berlin. He's a collaborator with the Monroe Institute, which we'll be getting to in a moment. And he's been essentially embedding their brain entrainment signals for expanded awareness and deep relaxation into his musical work. Everybody give him a hand. All right, now coming down on the left flank, We start with Miss Desiree Hurtak. And Desiree and James Hurtak are best known for creating the Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically a sacred tome that's practically mythic at this point. I remember when I was first handed this book when I was 18 years old, living in Asheville, North Carolina, and I literally thought somebody had brought me some artifact from the celestial heavens. I started to peel through it, and here's images of humanity going through this great transmutation and earth grids and magical things. I mean, it's a freaking powerful and fantastic book. And of course, these two are prolific authors, they're physicists, they're metaphysicists, their research goes so deep into so many areas, and I'm also deeply honored to call them friends. So thank you guys for being here on the panel. Now we have Miss Alan Evans, who is the CEO of the legendary Monroe Institute, everyone. And of course, that is a nonprofit that's dedicated to the global awakening of human consciousness through the study and the practice of profound states of expanded awareness. She's a Monroe Institute and energy medicine trainer, and it turns out that Alan loves swimming with dolphins in the wild, perhaps revealing a Pleiadian side maybe in there? I wouldn't be surprised if almost everyone on this panel has some of that medicine. Give Alan another hand, please. Thank you. We're so honored to have her here. And Joshua Reff, he established Earth Tuned in 2017 after a series of visionary experiences. He's since created one of the most virally recognized tuning forks on the planet and become a known global sound healing guru, and seems to have vast experience across many ancient forms of instrumentation. Is that right? For sound healing and awakening? Like, you've been deep in all the instruments across the world?
Quite a few instruments, but definitely the philosophies and sort of the energetic work within that, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Give Josh a hand, everybody. Welcome him here to the panel. All right, so let's see. To dive right in, you know, I want to start with the physicist, because I'm a physics guy. So if we're gonna get a foundation of understanding of this whole sound frequency healing mumbo jumbo, let's figure out how it actually works and what it's all really about. So, Chris, can you share with us a little bit more around your work with the ether and help explain to us how working with ether physics can help us, you know, become more resonant beings, how it's related to sound healing, and you even say that it can help us sort of take the leap to becoming interstellar. So would you speak on that a little bit?
I'll speak on it a lot a bit.
All right, good.
Yeah, so my work revolves around the ether and understanding the fabric of reality that connects everything. So everything in this room, everything in all the rooms in the cosmos is all connected by what some call the quantum field. But when it comes to sound, what people have to understand is that sound is not actually a sound. Sound itself is a vibration, or it's a movement of the medium that we call the ether, right? Tesla has also said like that light is just a sound wave in the ether. So whenever we talk about sound and actually coming to hear it, well, we have to understand that our ears and our brain are just translators. The idea of a tree falling in the forest, if no one's there, do they hear it? My answer is no, because again, you have to have the translator to interpret the ripples in the ether, right? So whenever, as I'm speaking, there's no voice in my throat. There's no sound in my vocal cords. What's happening is my vocal cords are shaking and vibrating, and that causes a perturbation or a disturbance in the medium that we call the ether, right? And so all of you who have ears, even if people who don't, maybe they're hearing impaired, they can still hear because they can pick up on the subtle inflections of the ether itself. So as I speak, you think that you're hearing me, but what's actually happening is you're interpreting the vibrations in the medium, and we call that sound.
Interpreting the massage, basically.
Exactly. Yes. So that's the foundation. Is that sound in and of itself is not a thing. It is the mere reflection of a thing. It's an action in the ether that we interpret, and we call that action sound.
Thank you.
That's
Beautiful.
the short, sweet version of it.
Okay, well, we'll come back to the interstellar part if we make ourselves back around there, because I think it's a really key piece of this. So we're immersed in this field of vibration, right? And so Sarah, you know, I know that your work has spanned across many, many different areas, but I want you to just kind of take what Chris said to the next step. You know, what have you learned from doing these deep dives with people over all of these years and writing these books about what sound is really all about for us? Like, what does it really mean? What is this that we're focused on here?
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me because I take people to the deepest level of trance, and then I can access their higher self and ask them anything. So what's really interesting is when people are very deep under hypnosis and they can see into different dimensions, they see that the dimensions, because of the frequency and the sound, they actually have shapes. And these dimensions that they're looking into look like geometric patterns. Like the flower of life pattern is not just the flower of life pattern. It seems to be like this holographic key that unlocks all this information. It's so fascinating. And what I find really fascinating too is by understanding this knowledge and by understanding that we're all frequency, we can program our frequency, we can change things about ourselves. And people's higher consciousness tell my clients deep under hypnosis, you need to come up with this mantra to change things about yourself. As you speak different things to yourself, not only your internal world will change, but your external reality changes because of what you're talking to yourself about. So I think it's so fascinating, this, learning so much about frequency and sound and how we can use that to change our lives.
It's beautiful. So would you say that some of these people are actually seeing what we would call cymatics, but in perhaps like a higher plane of existence, almost like astral cymatics?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's super cool. And what a beautiful tie, because it suggests that these patterns are in the ether itself, but that sound is just one of the forms of that in a way, or one of the experiences of it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, really cool. Well, Torquem, I know that your work is also interestingly kind of intersecting here, because your main project is called Quantum Harmonics, right? So will you tell us just a little bit about quantum harmonics? What makes the system so unique? Why is it valuable for meditation?
Thank you, Em. Shameless plug. Robert and myself all weekend are in San Lorenzo A, so come check out the Quantum Harmonics Lounge.
I was going to tell him that later. But
I'm in the shameless plug phase of my life, promise you. That's what I gotta do.
Dude, shamelessly plug it.
So,
let's go.
Real quick, I'll make it quick because I don't want to take up too much time, but there's frequency, sound, vibration, resonance, and music. Frequency is anything that vibrates at any rate, right? Vibration is a fundamental state of things. Music is the articulate arrangement of sound, sound which is only the frequency range in which your ear can perceive, or the brain can perceive and interpret. Kind of like you were just saying a minute ago, and which you beautifully expressed. And then a resonance is the optimal oscillatory range of a thing. So if you have a kid on a swing, you have a big gorilla push as hard as he can, that swing is not going to go any faster than its resonance. So when you really break down the terms and language, it starts to make more sense that like sound, frequency, vibration, resonance, music are all different ways to express a phenomena taking place. And Adam, to answer your question, with quantum harmonics, I've spent 12 plus years. Fundamentally, it was a birth from meditation, transcendental meditation. Raise your hand if you do TM meditation, anybody? TM meditation was amazing. It changed my brain, and so I let my fingered little tentacloids express my consciousness and my state of being. And so what I perform is a real-time kind of deep inward listening, feeling the energetics of my meditative space, and letting all those harmonics, like a Russian doll, you know, those Russian dolls, like let's sit and nest on each other and create this fractal expression of the whole, but as a part, as a whole, as a part. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, such a pleasure. Would you just tell us a little bit more about how, you know, how does controlling our frequency through things like tapping into psychic abilities, tapping into deeper states of meditation, you know, how can this essentially help us, you know, to access higher planes of existence?
I'm a contrarian in this topic. I don't think we should be raising our vibration anymore. Memo 2024, we've been trying to raise our vibration. It's not totally always working out. So I've flipped it. I want us to lower our vibration. I want us to ground a little bit more. I want us to find what's actually already in there instead of buy my package, I'm a coach, become enlightened, spend some money, attain thing, Tower of Babylon, be bigger, be bigger. I'm gonna help you become the biggest, best thing you've ever been. I wanna unsell that. I wanna be the person who's like, let all that go. Like there's something inside. Find what's within. And this is why music and sound is so amazing, because it's a language, predates all language. It speaks to us, and the things that it teaches and shows don't need words or ideas. They just need to be experienced. And in that way, being with that music and that sound and that state of consciousness is the primordial state. It's the observational state. It's not something you have to become enlightened for a million years. I think I've said a lot of words, I'm getting cut off. You don't have to spend 50 years to finally get it, because once you get there, you realize, wait, it's just about being present in what's always been there the whole time. And I think that's what is amazing about what I've learned in the 12 years. I started off with like 432, 528, DNA healing, mitochondria, aliens, Arcturians. And then over time, my process has been really like letting myself let go of more and more story, let go of more and more identity, more and more constriction. And the music has been a vehicle to do that. And what we find in there is incredible. It's so much more magical than anything, you know, that we assume or anything that we think we're trying to attain or get to. Like what's already there is just enough.
Yes, thank you so much. Give him that. Truly a brother and man of my own heart, because, you know, yes, like if you think about it, what happens if you're listening to music and all you're doing is raising the frequency? Eventually it just pierces your ears and there's no music anymore, right? So how do we experience the full breadth of life and existence and reality? We have to be integrative. That means the lowest bass and the highest highs are so important. And that's true, I think, emotionally as well. That we must embrace the harder feelings as much as the bliss. And if we can do all of that, if we can integrate all of that, then we can truly shine as whole beings. So, Robert, you know, your music is known to sort of seamlessly blend technology and nature in these different worlds. So can you tell us a little bit about your creative process with that and how it might relate back to some of these topics we've been discussing?
Yeah, sure. So I come from the electronic music world. I played music festivals for over a decade. And coming from this more technology-driven mindset, I always missed a little bit the organic pulse, so to speak, you know. So a lot of the club culture that I was immersed in was very much about the entertainment aspect of it. And it wasn't so much about music being essentially like a transformatory tool, you know, that we can use. And for me, the compositions that I make, I really create them as medicine for myself, selfishly. And it just turns out that it's also healing other people, because they reach out to me on social media and they're like sharing their stories, how it's been impacting them. And that led me down a path where I was like a little more intentional around that, where I'm not just expressing something that I find regulates my nervous system in a positive way, but I just dive into the science of it a little more, and then my music almost organically found its way into interesting collaborations with the Monroe Institute, or being used in psychedelic therapy. It's been used in a study with the Beckley Institute in the UK, a clinical trial and stuff. So I'm not pushing it there. It's literally like people reach out and they're like, can we use your music over here? Can we use your music over there? And I'm just following that flow really, because I'm not scientific in that way. I'm scientifically interested, but I'm not a scientist. So I'm coming from it from the artist perspective, and I just try to express something that's genuine and authentic, and try to combine the technology with it.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks for being here. I am curious about the award you won for immersion, by the way, because you know there's something so powerful when you're immersed in music and immersed in sound in a way that actually really shifts your state. Would you like to make a couple comments about that before we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in 2018, I created this full dome show called Sphere, which was a planetarium 360 show with like 360 visuals and mixed in third order ambisonics.
Yeah.
So it's like very immersive, both sonically and visually. And it was touring planetariums and full dome venues across the world for 2 years before COVID happened. And then it kind of tapered down, but it's now still playing as a license, as a standalone show in Berlin 10 times. It was playing in Chicago at the Adler Planetarium and other venues, in Moscow even. So it's interesting. It's a thing that really affects the nervous system of the audience, because a lot of people came up to me, they were like, this is the closest thing to a psychedelic experience that I've had sober.
Wow.
Because it's so immersive. You're like in this giant dome and it's like 8K resolution and you have like this really pristine sound. It's almost like being in a cinema that wraps around you.
Wow.
And then if you combine that with intentional music and intentional visuals, it's a really powerful experience. And yeah, we won a lot of awards, me and my visual partner, Michael Legoff from Paris, for best immersive experience, best full dome experience, etc. So it was nice to get that recognition.
Wow, amazing. Give him a hand. That sounds so epic. What was the show called?
It's called Sphere.
Sphere. Okay. Anybody out there seen Sphere? Anybody get a chance? Man, is it still showing at any planetariums in it?
Currently only running in Europe, but I'm negotiating with a few planetariums in the US as well.
Bring it back, man.
Yeah, I want to. I've
We
actually
need some of
writing
that.
a new one as well. So
Yes, need some of that sound medicine. All right, so the right wing is pretty amazing over here. Don't you guys think? I think so. It's feeling pretty fluffy. Over here on the left wing, we start out with the two absolute legends, and of course we'll start with Desiree. If you'd like to share with us some, Desiree. You know, obviously there's 1,000 things that I want to ask you related to all kinds of your work as well as this topic, but I'm curious, you know, for you, what is the draw in being on this panel? Like, what is the key to sound and frequency for you in what we're doing in the world right now and what's happening in the transitions that we're going through?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think all life is vibration. That's the important thing. We do have a book that just came out on sound, which is why
She has a book called Sound. Amazing. Okay.
Anyway, but it also shows not only that everything can communicate, they've got it now with plants communicating. That just came out recently. They can analyze even cows. They can tell whether they're happy cows or sad cows or talking to their kids' cows. So everything is communication. And we think communication with not only life forms in this reality, but life forms in higher realities are all a part of it. And we go back to chanting, as you know, Adam, that we feel those vibrations from the ancient times to the present is really key in activating our musical vibrations. And we also feel that we're living on a certain kind of octave on this planet, 3/4th dimension. When you get into some higher vibrational frequencies, and I'm not just talking about tones, but other realities, you're actually moving up into the scales of other dimensional realities, ultimately reaching those that are just light vibration. So this is part of, you know, we're realizing that really everything that came together, even recently the James Webb Space Telescope, they looked back to the very beginnings of time and they thought they'd find like a lot of chaos, a few atoms of here and there or whatever, and what they found was like perfect galaxies at the very beginning of time. And we think, because there really is a music of the spheres, that everything is encoded with vibrations of energy, light, and sound.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Carrying on, Desiree and I have had the privilege of working with key people in the music industry, everyone from Stephen Halpern to Alice Coltrane. And our work has been also involved with plant communication. Our Marcel Vogel at IBM. And we had the opportunity to work with several of the astronauts who claimed to have heard sounds when they were in outer space. So we know extraterrestrial and ultra-terrestrial intelligence, as we were told in the ancient Indian Sanskrit manuscripts, speaks through telepathic signals, but also through musical pulses, mantric language, if you will. And so our recent work is centered around the use of sacred mantras, not only in the Sanskrit, but the ancient Near Eastern languages and the indigenous work. And this is something we're carrying on with Carlos Santana. Carlos believes that the world's vibration has to be raised. We're at a cusp of either going into oblivion or taking a step upwards, going into eternity in the cosmic sense. We have a choice to raise vibrations, but to raise it with compassion, love, and understanding.
Thank you. Like I said, legends. I mean, you know, when I was a teenager, I was like sitting on the side of a river, you know, taking bong hits, listening to Carlos Santana, you know, so it's like, yeah, just collaborating, you know, doing their thing, making a lot of magic. You know, I also, before I move on, I noticed you have Giza Industrial Complex sitting in front of you as well, JJ. And I just want to just give you a brief opportunity, if you'd like, to just share a little bit about, you know, how sound is connected to ancient Egypt and the you know, sort of pre-Diluvian civilization, as we call it.
Yeah, thank you. This book really is a very interesting profile of how the ancient Egyptians used sound. And our work in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which we have illustrated also in pictures, was able to show that there is a musical language in the mathematics of the Great Pyramid. And this led to the finding of the tomb of Osiris. Osiris was the legendary teacher from the higher worlds of Orion who brought music to the earth. We found this using ground penetrating radar and sound penetration in 1997, 2 years before Isaiah Hawass announced it to Fox Television.
Right, and so basically our work has also been to combine the temples of Mexico, like those of Chichen Itza, to see if the same frequencies are there in the King's Chamber and other chambers of the Great Pyramid. And it seems that they are putting the mind into certain states of consciousness. We believe in that. You're saying going down in vibration. You know, most of you sitting here should be in beta wave frequency. Well, let's go down to alpha waves, right? And that's what the Monroe Institute has worked at. When you get into the Great Pyramid and you chant, we've seen in running pink noise and white noise sweeps that it's not just overtones, but undertones. And it is putting your mind, we believe, into alpha frequency states. When you go there, I know myself, and as I was mentioning once before, Sid Gulber's in the audience, that he did a show that relates to the Great Pyramid on Gaia TV. And I had this experience where the walls literally dropped away in the King's Chamber. So what's Sid's program? He doesn't have me saying it, he has this other guy saying it, but that's equally cool because I think it's great that 2 or 3 people I know have had those experiences in the Great Pyramid where the walls literally drop away and you're sitting there looking at the stars.
So music respatializes the mind. And the bottom line here is all of the ancient cultures that had great pyramids or temples are giving us musical scores in stone. And as Goethe, the great German poet, said, geometry is frozen music, well, the Great Pyramid is frozen eternity. So we are beginning to detect and analyze the sound frequencies in the major pyramids of China, Egypt, Mexico, and now in South America. So the story goes on, but the celebration of raising consciousness is already in the pyramids that point to the sky. Use the musical notes, change your breath, your heart rate, your compassion, and suddenly you will see the sky is coming into the heart.
Yes. Yeah, the first time that I was in the Great Pyramid of Giza in this life, I laid down in the sarcophagus with a gold and silver rod and crossed them over my chest, and the Osirian Way. I was with a bunch of amazing magi from around the world who were there as part of this thing called the Great Convergence. And I was founding Unify at that time, unify.org. And so we had a couple hundred people coming in, and we went into, you know, sequences of ceremonies in the pyramid. And I laid back in that sarcophagus, and I started to just hum until I could feel my body merge with the vibration of the entire space. And I thought I opened my eyes, but I didn't. I opened my eyes on an astral level, and I sat up, and there was no one in the room, and I was in a different pyramid that had a doorway going outside. And so I walked out this doorway, and I looked down, and I was on this very reddish planet with this gorgeous city with white pyramids, like gleaming white. And I knew I was on another planet. So I would say that's absolutely, there's some teleportation ability, entanglement ability, linking ability that goes on through these deeply immersive states of sound, as JJ was describing with the pyramid. And this is really, of course, a perfect bridge to Alan's work with the Monroe Institute, because as many of you may know, you know, the Monroe Institute has been probably the leading research group that I've at least heard of for the last 25 years that has done so much work across binaural beat therapies and different kinds of essentially sound medicine, sound healing, and sound experience. So, you know, I know one of the things that you get into in your workshop, Alan, is the sort of 7 different levels that we can work on to bring our vibration into greater coherence and to work on managing our vibration. Would you share a little bit about that with us, and like what's your process in terms of like an integrative sound healing approach?
First, I want to say you don't have to go to the Great Pyramids to do what he did. Come to Monroe.
True that. Nice selfless plug there.
The sound technology is a tool that can help you reach those deep states really quickly, and that's the beauty of it. And Bob Monroe was a genius. You know, he figured all this out when we didn't have the level of technology that we did or the way to measure like we do now. Going back to what you said about the 7 levels, I think you're talking about the focus levels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the focus levels are something that again was created by Bob Monroe, and it's like, he called it a map of consciousness. So we can have shared experiences with different combinations of frequencies that are impacting us or that we're hopping on to enjoy the ride, and it takes us to different spaces. So focus 10, which is the foundational focus level, is it's a combination of frequencies that has your body go to sleep and your mind stay awake. And the reason it's foundational, and I think probably the best focus level for training, is because what we miss, what we think we don't experience, is because we are not conscious. And if we train ourselves to be in these deep, deep meditative states, and our brain is alert, then we're going to hold on to those experiences. They will be conscious, like what happened to you, where you knew where you were. It wasn't something that you just clicked out on and didn't understand happened.
Yeah.
So there are other levels too, and they all have a different purpose. And so what we discovered over the years, when we have these combinations or recipes of frequencies, we tend to have similar experiences. One is called Focus 15, and that's no time. So when we experience that, most of us experience a void. It's a place of action, where if we're there and we don't initiate something with our imagination or with our intentions, we're usually just in this deep void, and it's peaceful, but you can also make it come alive, where you have access to future, past, parallel lives, past lives. So again, it's just a way he put a map around it so that we could know where we're going for different purposes.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So so a lot of this is about mapping different levels of consciousness and then relating that to different vibrations and sound in our body. and then learning how to sort of become a more holistically integrated being through that process?
Right. Well, so the thing is, you don't know how to get somewhere if you've never been there. And so that's why the beauty of the sound technology and the beauty of the map of consciousness, because now we can say, let's go to these places very purposefully, and then I know how to get back there. So that's the design around there. What I think happens as you go through these different experiences, you start talking, or your conscious mind starts communicating consciously with the subconscious mind. And that's where the self-evolution or growth can take place, because we're driven by so many things on a subconscious level. And if we aren't aware of it, then we're not aware. We're not able to grow or change or stop or move, take a different action.
Yeah, one of my favorite books recently is Carolyn Elliott's Existential Kink. Have you heard of this book, Existential Kink? It's absolutely fabulous. It's so brilliant. And really what it's about is how can we take the events, the challenges, and the sort of shadow that we manifest in the world and in life, and take full and deep responsibility for it, to the point where we essentially start to recognize how powerful we are as creators. That even when that frustrating thing happens and you're like, dang it, Mercury, or the like weird stuff is going on, that you're going, wow, some part of me has a real kink for manifesting conflict and shadow and challenge right now, right? And you're owning it, and by owning it, you start to embrace the subconscious part of you that's creating these challenges for your good. And so by embracing that subconscious part, it starts to become more conscious. And now you stop manifesting the things that get you really angry just so that you can experience how powerful you are when you're angry, right? Or like that make you grieve and really sad so that you can experience how deeply you can truly feel, right? If we start thinking of everything wrong as things that are happening for us instead of against us, that's the magic of the existential kink. And really, pleasurably integrating our shadow side into our gifts. So, thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. All right, Joshua. So, Earth Tuner. I'm actually really curious, like, what inspired you to create these giant tuning forks that you use in this earth-tuned sound healing experience? Like, where did this idea come from?
So, the short and long answer to this is ayahuasca. So,
ayahuasca.
The short answer, ayahuasca. The long answer of that was I had first started getting into sound healing and being opened up to that world a couple of years before I had my first experiences with ayahuasca. And naturally, I had been doing some work with a client of mine because I work with brainwave entrainment technologies and had been for a few years before this. And synchronistically, he paid me enough to go down to the metaphysical shop that he lived next to and buy my first set of tuning forks. And over the course of a few months, the normal sized ones, about yay big, I was using them and was completely mind blown to what it felt within me. It felt like I was unlocking all these keys, like untapped psychic abilities. It was just like little magic wands. And then I was bringing them into ayahuasca ceremonies, and quickly, if any of you, I'm sure plenty of you in here have been in those states of consciousness, that it just amplifies all that you bring in there with you. And all of a sudden, it hit these things together, and then the globe would appear in between it. And I'm like, whoa, what's this? It feels like I'm in a video game. Turning it around and zooming in and out. And I'd be in places that I had never been before, but could viscerally see them to the very detail. One of them was Central Park. I see myself in Central Park. I'm like, how am I gonna get there? I'm totally broke. I'm 25, what's going on here? And then a few weeks later, I end up there, and I'm able to take myself to the exact location that I had seen in the visions, including the conversation with the friend that was there in the visions. And so in these visions, it was, first it was this pyramid of light that I was building naturally. And then it became tuning forks were floating around it. So it was just like having the experience of falling in love with these tuning forks. And then all of a sudden, and the entities inside that space, the grandmother, the guiding spirit of ayahuasca, she just says, make tuning forks and take them with you for your other projects and see what happens. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, you haven't steered me wrong yet, so let's see what I can do with this. So how am I gonna do this though? Because my background before this was I was psychology. I was a scuba dive master for a little while, doing my best to not have a normal person job at all, and just running away from everything, which was kind of why I was doing ayahuasca in the first place. And so I'm just like, okay.
I love his vulnerability, don't you? And just to counterbalance for you for just a second, and so you can know your audience. All right, how many people out here in the audience have had an experience with ayahuasca? Just so that we have a sense. Okay, great. So you're solid. Keep going.
And so I'm driving home from the ceremony. Like, how am I going to make this happen? And my phone rings, and a guy I had just met a few weeks prior who ran an aerospace fabrication company in Washington, literal rocket scientist, is like, hey, do you want a job? I can't find anyone to help me. Everyone stops. And I'm just like, yeah, but I don't know how to do anything there. It's like, okay, just show up and I'll teach you what to do. So I show up 3 days later and I'm still just in it. I'm just I'm barely holding on to my body as I'm walking into this facilities. And I show him the little tuning forks, and imagine showing a little tuning fork to a guy who's making rockets, high functioning, genius level, no social skills. He's like, yeah, I guess we can make that. It's kind of dumb. And so we tried to make a small one, and we're using this machine that he's prototyping rockets for to make this tiny part. The thing's 14 tons, 12 feet across, and we're just not very happy with it. So we're like, well, it'd be a lot cooler if it was bigger, right? So we just scale up the model to see what happens, and I'm sitting there holding something that's about yay big. It looks like a sword. And I just take one strike to it, and immediately, every cell in my body just illuminates. I'm like, this was the message. Okay, I'm gonna do this. This is great. I wonder how much I could sell these for. Someone's got to be doing this. This is just.
So wait, you're not making tuning forks. You're making lightsabers out of sound.
Real world lightsabers. I've even got a double-sided one that looks like a Darth Maul lightsaber. It's great. I get to live out my childhood fantasies of being a magic space wizard every day.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so it turns out that no one was making metal tuning forks at this size. So it was just from the vision to where I was, it was 72 hours of then me suddenly having something to do with my life and running with it. I quit all my other jobs I was working for. And 6.5 years later, I'm sitting right here on a panel with such amazing people that I would be able to spend days just picking your mind, picking all of your minds individually. So, yeah.
Do you have one here?
I have a booth. Booth 400. This is the mystery. Booth 400 in the main ballroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and we can come and wield some of your sound swords, sound sabers.
You can come experience all of them, yes.
Nice. I will be there. I'm a swordsman, so I'm all about it. I'm like, you talking about a tuning fork that's the shape of a sword? I'll take it. Any other kind of tuning fork? But a sword tuning fork, definitely. I'm so in. Awesome. Joshua, thank you so much for sharing. You look like you had something else to say. Did I cut you off?
No, but keep asking me questions at some point.
Okay, no, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. Yeah, so I'm gonna, this is my first panel I'm hosting here at the Conscious Life Expo, by the way. Thank you. And, I being on a lot of panels, I sit on a lot of panels, I talk on a lot of panels. It's usually I'm sitting there kind of waiting for my turn to come around, you guys know how it is. And so I've wanted to see a little bit more of an interaction experience between panelists. It's been one of the things I desire. And Alan over here nods because he actually does a great job hosting panels. I don't think he even comes up here with pages of notes like I do. I think he's just like, well, so tell me about this, Adam Apollo, and he just drops right in and nails it. But I like my handicap over here. I'm gonna just pull this up. So I'm gonna jump into a series of sort of really fun paired questions that are gonna be addressed to two people somewhere on the panel. And so you're gonna get two different perspectives on each one of these questions. And then we'll roll through that whole crew. Does that sound like fun? Yeah. Okay, amazing. All right, great. Well, let's come back to Chris here, since you're my right hand man, and we're gonna pair this question for you with JJ and Desiree Hurtak right here on my left. So my immediate, roots of my wings here on this field. So both of you guys really deeply touch on ether physics, like on the fundamental field, as we call in unified physics, quantum vacuum fluctuations or the quantum plenum. How do you describe the relationship between different dimensions? And when we talk about dimensions of consciousness or planes of existence and the ether, and what can understanding these relationships teach us about consciousness? And of course, feel free to plug sound in there if you'd like, anywhere you'd like. Yeah, let's start with Chris.
Oh man, how much time do we have? Man, time is not a thing.
Don't worry about it. You got plenty of time.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. So I like to keep things very simple. Again, I like to make the unseen seen. And so I would say the first, hold on, this is, sorry. So the first thing is that I'll talk about this tonight, but there's no separation in reality. There's no different dimensions. There's no different densities. It's all states of vibration, all states of resonance. So for example, right now I'm in plain different realities I can visibly see with my mind, but I'm also here. But that's because I've developed a consciousness to be able to perceive things at one time while staying focused on where I want to stay focused. It's also because I've let go of the outdated thoughts that there's a 4D, a 3D, a 5D, a 1D. There's not. There's just one unified field, as modern science calls it. And so
The Aldi.
yeah, exactly. So it's just
I'm into the Aldi.
the Aldi, like the
I'm
store?
all about the Aldi.
Like the store Aldi?
No.
I'm kidding. Aldi, yeah. Anyway, the Aldi. Now every time I go to that store, I'll be in a totally different dimension now. Like, whoa. But that's my baseline, is that there's one unit of consciousness called the source, or some call it God. And you experience different levels of it by where your own perception ability is. So you perceive what you can perceive, but it's all there. It's all there. So that's where I'll start.
Right, so just agreeing and disagreeing in a certain sense. That's why superstring theory, which a lot of scientists are now poo-pooing, I think is 100% accurate. Maybe not the mathematics, but the concept. The concept is that everything is these vibrational strings, and how they're vibrating is really where you are at. So I believe we're in a concretized dimension, but we can easily change those frequencies, like we change the frequencies of our brain, and we can be shifting. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great term. Yes, shifting into other dimensions. In fact, I don't want to talk about my husband too much personally, but basically, he had a unique experience in 1973 where this being of light literally appeared to him in his room and took him, asked if he was ready, he said he was, and then took him into these higher realities. And they took his body first, and they took his body to a certain place. This is not an extraterrestrial spaceship, although we're into those as well.
That's the fun stuff. That's when it gets
Yeah,
interesting.
but also the same with UFOs. You know, they're operating on this vibrational reality, and it's not like, I agree actually with Chris. It's not like they drop this and move to there. It's all one harmonic, if I can say that, and it's
Right.
all one. So this is Dr. Jekyll went to a certain place. His body was left for a little bit, and then he went into his spirit body that then continued into these higher realities. So
Yeah, I also agree with Chris. We can talk about string theory, 10 dimensions, 11 dimensions, and we can even extrapolate and go to Arnold Schoenberg with 12-tone roll, that the dimensions deal with certain sound frequencies, but that's really kid stuff. The higher intelligence is far more complex. And the research we did in cooperation with Stanford Research Institute, Northern California, years ago, was to come up with the realization that we are multidimensional beings. And so we can go from 3 dimensions to hundreds of dimensions. It's a question of dimensional compression of information, and it's also based upon the maturity of understanding what we are in the 3rd dimension. when we have the maturity and the humility, we are able to shove off to other dimensions. But that requires sound. It requires not only sound, but the vibrations of love that goes with that sound. This is the great story that the Eastern traditions knew about far before the Western traditions.
And I just want to say, because this goes with the Monroe Institute, is that our brain is doing something very similar. It's operating anywhere from like 100 hertz all the way down to technically a half a hertz. And they're always operating, I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but certain times we're on one frequency level, like an alpha versus a theta, a delta, more strongly than the others. All those frequencies are all there. We're all one of that. But sometimes we're just more into one than the other. Go ahead.
So what's the bottom line? Sorry, Chris.
This is gonna get real. We're gonna blast off here in a second. No, I would even say, even taking that idea of the brain. So we see the brain as the place in which consciousness has its experience, but it doesn't. Because every time I go to sleep at night, I'm all over the place, right? Now, I can also meditate. Like, if everyone just close their eyes for like 2 seconds and I say a word, you're gonna see cat. You're gonna see dog. You're gonna see tree, right? If I say Jupiter, you also see that as well, right? So the brain is just the translator for what the soul or what consciousness is giving it to translate. So the goal here is to up-level one's ability to perceive reality differently, so that the instrument that we call the brain can then interpret what the soul is now saying. Hey, I want to focus on this. But if I just focus my awareness on shifting my perception, well, then now I become a smarter being. So my brain develops as a result of my ability to now perceive something like a kid. Imagination. You know, it's a real thing.
No, and we 100% agree. In fact, we don't consider the consciousnesses in the brain at all. We're really biotransducers picking up from the larger consciousness field, which is exactly. And
Biotransducers.
And if you can get into that higher field, you can go anywhere, and that's basically how it works.
So there's soul and there's higher soul. There's consciousness and super consciousness. And you get into all of these actions that deal with words, but the real idea is to have the experience that's a living experience that allows you to understand your incarnation. So ultimately, soul has to be understood as being local as well as non-local here, but also being all over the universe. And when you have that unity, that marriage, then you have maturity.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, we're in all the dimensions at once, and it's you know, whatever we call it, we're using the same different words to describe the same thing. Right? And it's beautiful. That was awesome.
Yes, guys, give them a hand. That was amazing. So we are all the Ds at the same time. It's not a 3D versus 5D game. Just a reminder, you might hear that sometimes in some places. Guess what? You can't have 5Ds without the 3Ds inside of the 5Ds. So, you know, it's all interconnected. And I love these shares because it really gives us the sense of the power of our focus, the power of our perception. You know, one of my good friends, Robert Edward Grant, likes to say, you know, you get what you focus on. So if you're focusing on all the bad stuff, you're getting it all the time, you know. And he's you know, big business leader and CEO, so you can watch him literally drive things happening by focusing on the right stuff. So let's focus on the right stuff, everybody. Okay, great. So the next pairing that I have going on here is with Ms. Alan Evans of Monroe Institute and Torquem G, Sound Healing Master. So I want to get a little bit more kind of tactical into the nature of the sound itself, like the actual sound healing or the sound process. Like, I want to talk about frequency, binaural beats. I want to know, from your perspective, Alan, and from your perspective, Torquem, you know, what are some of the things that can be done with sound to influence the body and to change the body's state? Because I think for a lot of us out here, you know, we think, well, what are you guys talking about? Do you want to just like play me a song? You know, like what is the sound healing? Is it just like, and why does it work? Am I just in a bunch of gongs or singing bowls? So tell me from your knowledge and your backgrounds, you know, what do you actually do with the sound that causes a response in people?
You wanna go first?
Sure.
All right, Torquem, take the lead.
That's a great question. First things first, there's the fact that we're all here. You've probably, in the last 10 years, listened to some kind of YouTube, you know, 965 hertz, mitochondria repair, something or the other. So the way I see it is like, there's two things going on here. There's how sound actually impacts us physiologically in the body. And then there's how sound leaves an imprint on our psyche and can affect our mood. And a lot of times that happens together. Those are interconnected. But physiologically speaking, I think what's happened is there's been a lot of frequencyism, is an umbrella term. This frequency does this to all people universally, regardless of mass and size and density. Makes no sense to me. I've been studying Pythagoras for 15 years. You have to actually approach something in accordance with the size and density and mass, and the different sized anvils had a different size clank, 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 clank. So, whoa, different sized base of the anvil must mean that planets have different frequencies based on their mass and size. So I've never really understood, in the 15 years I've been doing this, I've been subtracting more and more of the information we've learned as to get to like what's happening. And the frequency that we can say that actually has an effect is like 40 hertz range. That's where cats purr. And it affects people. I found this on a research paper online. I have not been able to find it since. I read it up and down like 5 times. And I said, this makes sense, I can't believe it. And it brought two things together. NASA sending cats to space. Yes.
Nice.
They considered it. For companionship, and because cats purr between 40 and 50 hertz. Why is that important? Separately, last year an article came out that range has a positive effect on countering Alzheimer's in the brain, all kinds of stuff. Is it a mechanical wave? Is it a pressure wave? Is it a sound wave? There's different nuances to it because those are different types of waves. But the main point is 40 to 45 hertz, a cat purring, let's say it's a sound wave, oscillates the muscles on your bones, regardless of if you're a really small person or a really large person. You could point to the 40 hertz range and say this universally causes people's muscles to dance on their bones. Well, why is that effective? Because it increases bone density, actually. Like a Muay Thai fighter kicking a tree strengthens their shin bone. The muscles dancing on the bones entice the bones to redirect calcium and nutrients, and they get more dense. So I can draw a through line on that. 40 hertz wave, vibrating my muscles are dancing on my bones have a response. A lot of the other frequency stuff is like, wait, which chakra and where is that chakra located? And is that the same frequency for everyone regardless of if they're small or large, or there's no variation? Oh, so it's an energetic chakra point. Oh, okay, so it's something I can't even measure or know about or pinpoint or study or research. I just have to assume somehow the frequency on YouTube, that the YouTube guy with 95 billion views is making $65,000 a week. He's telling me that it's repairing my mitochondria and that this frequency is doing something with my DNA and it's unlocking a specific part of my chakra energetic auric field. And that's just so much to take on. So then here's where I get to with it. A standing wave, any sound you hear, let's say, boop, do that with me, everyone, breath in, boop. Great, that's a standing wave. It's traveling through air. It's based off of propagating through particles. That serves as the medium. You need a medium for sound to travel. That's why sound doesn't travel through space. When you hear sonified planets and stars, that's not the sound of that planet. That is a kind of artistic interpretation of oscillations and cycles that are then put into MIDI, and then you design using, let's just make it a piano sound, and then you play, and then it takes that data and it sonifies it, and it shows you what otherwise is a two-dimensional cross-section of some things moving around. It doesn't mean that's how it sounds. It doesn't sound that way. And then there's another way to measure objects, which is how they rotate around the thing. It's this oscillating period. It's revolution around the thing. That's another way to measure frequency. We talked about a person having a frequency? Are we talking about their heart rate frequency, their brainwave frequency, their gas in their stomach, and how often they're releasing gas frequency? Or which frequency? Because we're frequently frequent as humans. We're very frequent all the time with frequencies. So which frequency is a person on or off? I can't even keep up anymore.
Cellular oscillation or
Cellular.
nervous system,
If you play a drum underwater, what happens? It doesn't propagate because it's surrounded by water, and your cells are surrounded by water. Who has seen any claim that sound destroys cancer cells? Scientist finds a TED Talk where he gives a talk about sound destroying cancer. Ultrasound, but they don't tell you that. Everyone wants to get you in on the easy, low-hanging fruit of what seems to sound, no pun intended, like it makes sense, but nothing science-related at all points to sound destroying cancer. If anything, it's ultrasound is used to generate heat in a specific area that ruptures the cell, that causes integrity, then that thing dies out. That's a through line, like the muscles on the bones. That I can say I get this and this and this, and that makes sense. So what I'm most interested in is where physiologically are the markers that a specific sound or any kind of sound impacts us. And the last 2 points I'll make is we are the healing, like the healing's actually happening inside of you. So let's take it off of the frequency or the music. The music or the frequency serves as a medium. It serves as a storyteller. It says, you're too much in your head. Let's come in with shh, and then let's do the opposite. That's a story. So that the sun rose and the sun set. I lived a life, I ended a life. Light came in, light went out. Something rose, something fell. It's the most basic story is but something in that is healing, it's transformative. So if music can tell stories and guide you through visceral lived experiences that reflect fundamental aspects of creation, dimensionality, harmonics, ratios, relationships, then the music serves as a storyteller and it's working with you in which you're having your own physiological, mental, spiritual revelations, breakthroughs, reparations, restorations. And
it's almost like you're saying, you know, the indigenous people like to talk about time as a healer, like the day cycle, the night cycle, the cycles that we go through is actually the greatest healer of all, right? As you're pointing to. And I also hear you saying that we're bells, you know, that like each one of us is a bell of a certain size. And so only certain frequencies are going to vibrate that bell, right? Only certain, you have your own specific frequencies. Is that what you're getting at?
I would have gone towards the route of trying to engineer and create a whole system that approaches someone's specific physiology, size, mass, density, weight, body type, whatever else factors, as to then be like, this is the sound of you, literally. But I was like, that's way too much work. I'd rather have this gross effect where it's like, here's a general with overtones. Here, absorb that, enjoy. You know? So I'd rather just be like smorgasbord of harmonics. Enjoy that. I feel like we take from that what we will. But I'm still waiting to walk out to the floor and see the dude who's not just like, I just have the run-of-the-mill vibration bed. It's like, okay, cool, we've seen all this. I want to meet the guy who went all the way. He's like, I studied Pythagoras, I studied the Pythagoreans, I studied the ancients, I extrapolated what is meaningful here, and based off of physics and science of sound, and what I've created is the ultimate biofeedback measuring device that takes into account your bone density, where your organs are placed, you know, how much urine is in your bladder, every factor we could factor.
Yeah.
To know exactly where you are. And then we're gonna play the resonant frequency of you to you.
Nice.
But nobody's doing that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But so what I want to get us out of is oh, here's 528. That's the general heart chakra frequency sound that like everyone benefits from. I want us to bring more nuance to the convo.
Yeah.
I want to learn, where is that 528 if you're making that claim? Is it universal? And how do you know that is the other question. But in conclusion, I've said a lot. A standing wave is
You've
made
got
up
a
of...
partner waiting over here.
I know.
So.
Okay, I'm going to turn it to her. Ellen, you're awesome for being patient. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll just help transition a little bit. Thank you, Torquem. That was so awesome. Tour de force, and one that I really, am glad to be received here. Was that helpful for you guys? Like, because yeah, we always hear like, that's the frequency and it's the most important frequency and that frequency is the best frequency, and it's not always really the truth, is it? I mean, there's frequencies that connect things, and there are scalar frequencies, and you know, I like to especially point out that the Earth is a specific size, and that specific size has to do with the frequency of the planet. So it's not like the planet's frequency is just going to kind of like go up all of a sudden out of nowhere, right? There's a standing wave field to the bell that is the Earth. And I like to relate back to the chakras here as I pass it to you, because I do think that, you know, each of our glands are a certain size.
I will concede that point.
Thank you very much, thank you. And I'm going to give it to Alan. Please, Alan, what do you think about what Torquem shared, and do you have a similar or different perspective at the Monroe Institute? What's your thoughts on that?
So we have a different perspective, not a counter perspective, but we're coming at it from a totally different direction.
Great.
And it's more about using the sound technology for brain entrainment, which helps us go to these targeted spaces. And by targeted spaces, I mean that map of consciousness. So it's a focus level. Focus level 12, for example, is where we are hanging out more with our total self, having experiences on that level. We have focus 21, and that's where we're stepping into communicating with other beings, other entities, other people maybe in our program that are also having an experience with us, like a shared experience. We have story after story of that. So it's more about an experiential approach to healing versus, like, we don't label a frequency and say this frequency does this. It's more about a recipe combination, and then we're going to a specific grouping of, again, that we've labeled by focus levels, and one focus level is not better than the other. It just has a different purpose. Now, we do have energy medicine, which I'm one of the trainers. So again, we're using the technology. We're having experiences, we call them exercises, but we're not looking at or even investigating how is that specifically doing the healing. It's like a whole body approach. It's, well, we're working on having the subconscious mind communicate with the conscious mind. So that's healing. We're putting ourselves in these deeply relaxed states. We're making intentions that we are healing, that we are balancing our energy body. So it really is a totally different perspective.
Got it.
But
So-
not counter, again, it's just,
Right.
we're coming at it from
No, it seems quite symbiotic actually, because I mean, you're getting at like, we each have different physiological frequencies, that there are certain key zones and low frequencies that have an innate reactionary effect within the muscular system and the package of the body. And you're saying that when you are essentially relating sound to the brain itself, and the sound is helping to entrain the brain into different states, you know, that will essentially produce changes throughout the glands and throughout the body.
Right, and there's the work of Maxwell Cade, and it's a mind mirror technology that we actually use at the Monroe Institute. There's a program that you can take called Discovery, where you're actually getting this EEG look at your brain, and it'll show that when you're doing different meditations or exercises, that there might be different patterns are formed in the brain. So like when he first started this work, about the same time Bob Monroe did, he wanted to map healers, mediums, psychics that were well known. You know, they had shown that they could have these abilities and do this. And then from that work, he created these patterns. Well, when you do meditation a lot, and it doesn't have to be using sound technology, but that's our platform. So people who meditate a lot using the sound technology, they get their minds, their brains mapped, and it shows that they're holding these patterns that the healers, the psychics, or the mediums would hold. And Maxwell Cade also believed that the more people that we can put in these awakened states, that's one pattern, and that's the one I'm referring to with the psychics, healers, and mediums, the more people we can put in those states, they can hold those states, which the sound technology allows you to do, the better the world will be. And that's where we're transcending. And
Nice. Upgrading humanity's state.
that is
and
our goal.
maybe empowering the potential of the masses. I mean, I'm all about that. I'm doing a whole hour and a half long talk on that at 4 o'clock. So it's all about, called Starfleet, gamifying planetary transformation. And it's literally about how do we get the entire world and the masses engaged in the game of planetary stewardship. So like, how do we really make it a part of life?
So I think one way we're doing
yeah.
that, and Monroe Institute, for example, is we're going after 1% of the world's population to make this evolution. Well, we're not the only organization doing that. So as more organizations, more people have that intention in mind, then we'll hit that tipping point, and hopefully it's in time.
Yes, we will build an alliance together, and we shall do this. It shall be great. Okay, great. So now we're gonna go down to the far wingtips here. Got Joshua Ref and Robot Coach. We have, you know, you guys each essentially have been deep in the world of resonance and harmonics, right? So this has been a deep part of your world. And I'm curious, you know, both, you know, from the sort of instrumentation creation of a device and creation of a space or a song or a, you know, a magic experience through sound standpoint, you know, from each of your perspectives, you know, what specific kind of what kind of specific frequencies and tuning and things like that do you apply to create effects on a cellular level? Like, do you have a particular approach to this in the way that you do the biofeedback process and find out what's going to work, what's going to resonate for people? Joshua, take us off.
All right, let's see here. So in terms of tunings, I like to stick primarily with 432 hertz Pythagorean bass tunings. Mostly because what our other speaker over there was saying is there's so much. Hello? Hello? Okay.
Check.
Check.
Okay, we're back.
I'm back. All right. Because there's so much out there that. Okay. Because there's so much out there that just seems to be in a way that you can say is almost spiritual materialism. There's materialism of physical objects, there's materialism of the mind. And there's so many things like, oh, this specific frequency, this will heal your spleen, or this will repair all of your DNA. But really, you can't make those claims because there's not measurable. So I'm always one that's like, they have to have some foundation in something that I can measure and something that I can see. And the biggest thing that I can see is mathematics and geometry. And the biggest red flag, or the biggest indicator for me, is if I look at the geometry of a pentagram, it's the perfect harmony to make a perfect fit in a D and an A. Every angle within it is either a D or an A in an octave lower or higher. I'm like, okay, I love stars.
Whoa.
This makes sense. So let's.
And it's also the geometry of DNA, like ratio-wise.
Exactly, which is right there.
D
so.
and A, okay.
DNA. So one of my instruments is called a DNA key because, you know, it's tuned for DNA and it also looks kind of like a chromosome. But so that's where I like to keep things there. And in terms for how it can affect and how it can be of use for healing and experiential endeavors, I would say the sheer size of the instrument will vibrate every cell within your body. It doesn't even have to be touching you, and you can feel almost like a sonar pulse going into your bones, going into your muscles, and into your fascia. And I think that's one of the most important things within all of this is that interaction right there. Because there's a property of, you know, matter called piezoelectrics, and certain crystalline structures will emit light when they are subject to physical force, distortion, or even electromagnetic frequencies. And so our body has a lot of piezoelectric properties to it. Our DNA is a crystalline structure that constantly emits light. And this is something they've measured for as long as they could measure it, but DNA is constantly emitting a low pulse or a low beam of light that is essentially structured light. It's like a laser. It conveys information constantly. And so when you vibrate the cells, you're vibrating the DNA, you're causing a piezoelectric response within the crystalline structure of DNA to cause it to release more light. And in that state, it's thought it can either transmit or receive information, and that's where we have a lot of psychic abilities. That's where we have a lot of, when we get the mind in the right state of consciousness, that field created in the mind is having an effect on the full body so that you can emit and receive. It's just that heightened vibration. going into, I don't believe higher vibrations or lower vibrations are bad or good. They're all good. It's a matter of harmony. And in creating spaces like this, you do things in the electronic world. And that's where I started. It's great. The two people on the end are probably techno DJs. It's wonderful.
And the guy in the middle too.
Right, exactly.
Tomorrow night. Shameless plug.
I'll be there. And so it's creating a space in which we can really just not only just be subject to these sounds, to be bathed into the physical experiences, but the real work comes from finding that moment of stillness, finding something, that sound, to really disengage the mind, disengage the chatter, so we are just there in the moment of medicine, because sound is medicine. It conveys a lot of information, it conveys a lot of intent, and with the right intentions, the right meaning, you can create miraculous settings. And that's the importance of these big events, like even if you don't feel like you're doing something, but having someone show up at the end and say like, wow, what you did was really prolific, that had a great impact. And being able to see that, being able to see and go through, and like, when I work with people, or I love to take my instruments to festivals, I stick them in holsters on me and look like a sound healing ninja cowboy in all black running around. But just being able to like immediately see the reactions with somebody, like, my friends and I would joke, we go around and see how many people we can make cry, because it's just like immediately pull something out and tears streaming down their face. So it's like really like you can have such an incredible impact, and it's just like the sound is connected to so much more, and there's quantum elements to it, and so many things we can get into, and I'll be talking for days and days. So I'm gonna hand this
It's okay.
you over there.
I made 42 people cry yesterday.
It was amazing.
It was solid.
Then they took my business card and bought an instrument from me. Shameless plug.
Master Robot.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to piggyback on something that you said around intention, because that's a big one for me. Some of you might be familiar with Inayat Hazrat Khan, a Sufi mystic. He wrote that book, The Music of Life, and he talks about intention in there a lot. Oh, serious?
Hang on, everybody. Woo. All right. Every once in a while. Oh, there's a little aftershock. Yeah. That could be before shock, so hold on to your seats, everyone. Robot's taking us into the big sound healing now. Here we go. It's going to be immersive. You ready?
From our experience.
That's actually one of my tuning forks.
Is that the collective intention?
You guys, I'm pretty sure that happened because of this panel. Please
I
carry
lost
on.
my train of thought.
Piggybacking on intention.
Oh yeah, intention, exactly.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think it's important because the intentionality around what you do, it's way more important than whether you use 440 or 423 and all that, I actually disagree with, no, don't disagree, I agree with Torkum and a lot what was shared on the panel around the frequencyism and like the illusion of like, this is the right frequency for this and that. I mean, I just test things on myself, and that's what the most truest kind of resonance it can have towards. I can read a lot of papers, and I can read another paper that states the opposite of what the other paper states. But I can have a very subjective experience with sound in my body, and that can ring true, and that's how I go about it. That's how I compose. I really like feel into myself. I'm the first test dummy to try things out on, and I realize whether or not it's taking me somewhere. And it doesn't matter, and I think something can be in 423 and it can be boring as hell, and something can be 440 and it can really touch you, you know what I mean? So I don't believe in all that. I'm not gonna say the science doesn't matter, but I think it only adds to the experience, which is way more intention driven than it is frequency or technology driven. And that's why my thing is like embracing technology and nature in my work. Like nature has to always take the lead, and technology is the one that sort of like backs it up and maybe like gives it a little ramp to even be more on point or whatever, but it can never like take the lead, so
I love that.
that's where I'm at.
I love that. Thank you. Yes. So, you know, an old friend of mine, woman that I deeply admire, Janine Bays, would deeply agree with you. You know, she wrote books on biomimicry and essentially the understanding that as good as we might get with our ideas of technology, nature's already solved those problems 1,000 times over and better. And so if we can pay attention to and listen to and look at the way that nature does things, then we're suddenly much more deeply informed. I also, you know, DJ the way that you're talking about sound production. I'll be just listening to tracks from my friends, new albums and stuff that they've created or produced. And it's when that song hits that I'm like, oh yeah, like my whole body lights up, everything lights up. Then I'm like, that's a track, I'm buying that, I'm putting that in my set, you know, it's gonna be great. So I agree that, you know, I think we are the best instruments really to do the work, like not just using some sort of external symbolic or object as the thing that's gonna tell us that this is good for us or not, but actually the direct experience of it. And I really heard you saying that too, Josh, you know, so do you wanna add to that?
And
a little
just
bit?
like a little add,
Mhm.
so in the experience that Torcom and I are going to be offering later on a couple of times this weekend, if you guys are feeling.
All weekend, Robert. Just tell him.
Okay. He's better than.
All weekend long.
I'm not the guy who can do the plug.
San Lorenzo B room, everybody. Oh, A room. So sorry, I got the wrong information here. Vibro acoustic therapy, all weekend long. San Lorenzo A.
And
With
we're going to use one of the songs I'm going to perform is using the Schumann resonance.
Okay.
And I have a tuning fork that might be like a little nice thing we can talk about, which is tuned to a harmonic of the Schumann resonance.
Nice.
I'm going to offer.
That's the resonant frequency of the Earth that I was talking about. The Earth is like a bell. Its
Exactly.
frequency is the Schumann resonance.
So I'm going to be offering hands-on treatment with the tuning fork while you're immersed in the sound that is also tuned to that frequency, harmonic. So you're going to feel it like vibroacoustically on your body as well as being immersed in the sound. So it's a neat experience, just if you're interested.
Okay, love it, love it. Thank you so much. Okay, amazing. Guys got to get in and check that out. So we do have time for audience questions, but before we go there, I want to just, I have, of course, one more very important panelist that I want to hear from on some of these topics. And since, you know, we didn't quite have the right pairings and she was a special guest of this panel, I'm actually going to repair her with JJ and Desiree her talk. I think it's quite appropriate. And since they are kind of 2 and 1, kind of like the Syrian star system, you know? You look in the sky, you see 1 star, but it's actually 2 stars. And each one of them is essential. They're called Sirius A and Sirius B. And by the way, if somebody ever tells you, yeah, well, I'm from Sirius B, and the other person's like, well, I'm from Sirius A, I'm like, so you grew up on the surface of a star? Did you? Is that really? Like you were like hanging out in the freaking firestorm, huh? Sounds like hell to me, but I'm from the planet between the two, so, you know, there is a difference. But, you know, speaking to that is something really deep in my heart. I'm you know, essentially someone who has explored throughout my life my past lifetimes, and I have come across and experienced a lot of different events in my life that as a scientist I could not ignore. I had to start taking the data in, and I started to build a map for myself of the hundreds of people that I knew and had memories with from other lifetimes to start to build a greater story and understanding of who I am and what I'm here to do. And what I see you doing, Sarah, is something similar, where you're working with people to kind of bring forth these different magical bits of sometimes, I guess, their past, sometimes I think it's general past, but I'm really curious, you know, do you use sound when you're doing this work? And I'm also curious to you, JJ and Desiree, on the other side, you know, have you done work with sound that was specifically unlocking memories from the past, from ancient cultures, like as if certain frequencies maybe resonate, and again, it doesn't have to be that, but I'm curious if there's certain specific sounds or frequencies or experiences that will actually resonate open in a deeper way these memories that souls may have through time outside of just this body. And Sarah, I'd love to start with you because you haven't had a chance to share in this segment.
Oh, thanks. Well, I don't particularly use any other sound other than my voice, but I learn a lot about sound. And I love this discussion so much because I've learned so much. I mean, I definitely want to take ayahuasca. It was the first time I ever experienced an earthquake. That was cool. It was like the earth sounds, you know.
This is the best
Going
ever.
over there, and I'm definitely checking out the tuning forks and everything else. But oh my gosh. But one thing that you touched upon a little bit that I hear all the time is that we each have an individual sound. And our souls seem to sing when we're really happy. And what happens when we're in alignment with our purpose and who we are, who we came to be, like Source's instrument almost. When we're Source's instrument producing the right sound, our soul then emits this song. And what I've come across recently in so many of my sessions is that we become this vessel to house a higher level of being. So it's not like we have to go anywhere, we just have to be Source's instrument more so. Like we have to allow more of this higher level of ourselves to inhabit our vessel, so to speak. So no, I don't really particularly use sound. I just find out a lot about it. And to me, it's also fascinating. You know, it's just so exciting to learn. I'm always like, what are they going to share with me next? You know, it's just such an amazing experience to be me and do this work.
Is there a specific thing that you've surfaced through doing this work with people that has to do with sound from ancient times that they're remembering from other lifetimes?
Yes, and oh my gosh, in these ancient civilizations, they use sound, and we don't use sound like they did. They could levitate objects. It seemed like they would match the frequency of an object, and then they were able to levitate it. And they had these staffs in so many of these ancient cultures that would produce like a low hum, and it would come out of the staff. But what was really fascinating was only particular people could use a particular staff, that it worked with yourself as an instrument. And then when people remember, because I love everybody's memories, when they would remember being initiate priests, like in the Great Pyramid, they remembered that they used to put themselves into a state that would create a sound, and it would magnify off of the box that they would put themselves into, and then they could levitate themselves, their soul, their higher consciousness out, go into the ethers, and they would be downloaded this information that became the sacred information that they would teach. And it would be like only the initiate priests would learn that stuff. And yes, all civilizations leave an imprint. And that's how you can touch upon it when you're in deep hypnosis.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Right, so just picking that up, yeah, we have worked at the ancient temples, as I mentioned, in Mexico, like Chichen Itza, and even in Guatemala, Tikal. If you've ever gone to Tikal, you can actually be standing down at the very center of the plaza, and then someone could be way high up, and I mean, really, normally you would never be able to hear them, at the top of one of the pyramids there, and you can hear them perfectly talk. So there's no doubt that almost all the temples from, I'll say, east and west, especially the ancient ones, had a certain harmonic. And I won't say just one sound. Actually, some of our work, and we published this actually in an archaeological journal in Mexico, works with A sharp, and F sharp. Those are the two, there's like certainly a range in there of vibrations that seem to be placed to activate. And it's not just to activate the temples, it's actually to activate the soul, to bless the soul, to receive that higher information. And same, I believe, with the idea of the tabernacle in Israel, that there were certain harmonics that actually then attune the brain. And I think it really all goes back to us It's a certain attunement. It's a certain frequency. I know there's many people that tried, and I keep saying this to the Monroe Institute. I haven't heard Alan say anything, but the idea of the alpha frequencies is really important because we can receive information in our meditations if we're put into those frequencies. However, when they studied Tibetan lamas, it wasn't the alpha frequency, it was the gamma frequency, which is really intense concentration levels that their brains were functioning in. So these are all things that attune us to the reality around us, that I believe in meditation also heals the body, and people can go into certain places to receive that healing energy, or meditate to receive that healing energy, or in the third place, reach into higher levels of awareness. Dr. Hertak?
And I brought this rare picture.
Oh.
It shows our research in the Great Pyramid. I was singing, and suddenly a standing column or wave appeared. And it lit up the interior of the Great Pyramid, the area known as the Grand Gallery. And the Egyptian guards were afraid. They thought an earthquake had taken place. As you can see here, this is a very rare picture because we document our work, our research. It lit up, we hit a frequency, and suddenly the vibratory nature produced light just for a few fraction of a second. And we did other experiments at another location, and the Egyptian guards on the top of the pyramid began to dance. They could feel through the feet the vibration of the whole pyramid becoming a musical note. So this is really, I love what Sarah just said. This is our chance really to make a change in the collective consciousness of positive energy, of music, of the spheres being vibrated through our heart. Because if we don't do it, the opposition, what I would call those who are interested in making a material civilization the bottom line, no, humanity is a spiritual civilization in human form. We are here as conductors of energy. And that can be a fantastic transformation of our planet. In spite of difficult times we're moving into, we are the transformers on the spot. The reason why we're here.
That's right. We're shaking the earth right now, everybody. That's what's going on. So I want to speak to my guys in the back and ask if you guys have a microphone to bring up so that we can take some audience questions. Yes. Oh, Alan, of course. Yes, please go ahead. And
So while you're getting the questions ready, in response to what you were saying about alpha, when I was talking about the mind mirror, where we're mapping patterns of the brain, that particular pattern that I was talking about with psychics, mediums, and healers, very heavy alpha. So definitely, but we don't focus on that when we're doing our focus levels. Yes, they have different levels of the combination, but it's more about, again, the purpose and intention. But using that science, the EEG, to measure it, we see that's what's happening, is we're really getting into those alpha states. And I agree with you. And then also with Monroe Sound Science, which is our evolution, we've got a meditation room. You can experience it for yourself on the second floor, or this floor. That is a technology that we've discovered or been working with that we now can help you get to gamma. Binaural Beats has a limitation that, yes, you can still go to gamma in your experience, but the sound technology is not really facilitating that. And now with our new uses of other modulations, not just binaural beats, we're able to help you get to those gamma states as well. And we're having a lot of fun with that.
yeah, I've had some moments in some gamma states myself, and it was like my consciousness was on hyperdrive, like just like everything that's possible to see I was seeing. Kind of the vast opposite of being in delta state while you're conscious, where it's almost like massive stillness, like this expansive void of receiving in a way.
Right, because you're over 30 hertz. You know, that's the epiphany moments. It's they put EEGs on Olympic athletes, and this particular one I'm going to talk about are skiers who then stop and then shoot at targets. And what they discovered is, you have to ski as fast as you can. Then when you get to the place where you set it for the target, then they immediately drop into gamma. Heightened experience, heightened ability to focus, and they, hit the shot.
Wow. Amazing. Josh, it feels like you want to make a comment as well.
I have a little bit of a question about this actually, because I work with like a brainwave entrainment through light pulses, and yeah, they're amazing technology. I'm actually making. Oh yeah, I'm making one right now. Yeah, but that's a whole different topic. But the studies for achieving gamma states, especially with their measuring the brainwave activity of monks that were hitting gamma, they would find that they would get there after going from, beta, alpha, beta, alpha, theta, delta, and then once they had hit the bottom, it's like then it would open up as spikes. Is that something that you've been noticing?
Yeah, we see spikes, and it's not something you usually hold very long, but it's and those are the epiphany moments. It's been real interesting. We've done some initial work with people with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and we can get them in these very deep delta states, which is what you're talking about, and then spike with gamma, do it again, spike with gamma, do it again, spike with gamma, and it's breaking up the neural pathways where that, what is it, neurons that fire together are wired together, so it helps to break that up.
Wow, right. So kind of unsticking people from past patterns and past states.
It doesn't have to be the post-traumatic stress.
Right. It could probably is a powerful addition to some trauma therapy, I would imagine.
Exactly, and then also if you're a worrier, you really worry a lot. We look at your brain. This is all lit up every time. It just because you're worrying yourself to death, and so those are the kind of things also that can help break those patterns, so that you are stopping that habit basically, or that you've wired that to happen.
And you're doing this with sound frequencies, not always frequencies we can hear. That's so important. I know no one said that. When we're talking sound, we only hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz, but you're dealing with things that are even, the Schumann resonance, about 7.8 to 8, hertz. So you're not hearing it, but you are getting it.
Right, we usually have like a pink noise or either music, so you hear something, but you're not hearing the frequencies. One frequency goes in one ear, and this is binaural beat technology. Another frequency goes in the other ear. Then you can think of the brain as the third ear, and it's unscrambling that, and that's what gives us that frequency following response to go where that, where the difference is in those two frequencies.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So we highly recommend the Monroe program. The Academy for Future Science, we deal at many levels, but the music comes down to the specialists who are set up to do this.
Yes, thank you, JJ. So we have the mic up now. So if anyone wants to kind of get in the queue, as they say, and line up for that microphone, please go ahead and do so now. I will make a mention as you guys are doing that. I was curious, Sarah and Doctors JJ and Desiree Hertak, since this question was to you guys, Sarah mentioned several times the use of staffs in these different timelines and time periods where these staffs were being used to control matter, control stone, to vibrate things in a specific way. I'm curious, have any of the three of you heard of Solomon's Shamir? Because I've been trying to trace these staffs down, and in my work in Egypt, I came across, all of these different, and we've all seen the representations of the Jed staff, with the two massive, large petals coming off the top that look like guidelines. You've got what look like essentially the two poles of a plasma arc, right there inside of a circular lens-looking thing. And we have this story about, you guys haven't heard of Solomon's Shamir, or you're not familiar with that one, or?
It's mentioned in the Ethiopic text.
Yeah.
And certainly throughout East Africa, and particularly in the hieroglyphics of Egypt, you find a lot of emphasis on the staff.
Right.
We think of it as our spinal system. When we activate from the bottom of our spine to the top of our head, our body becomes really a vibratory staff. We become cosmic creators, cosmic orchestrators.
Well, this particular story about the Shamir, they described it as a worm, but that it was some kind of like long worm-like thing that had a green eye, that Solomon actually and his team used it to help build Solomon's temple, and it had the power to cut through stone, lift stone, change the shape of stone, And that to me, that sounds like one of these, galactic staffs made its way down. Maybe there was only a few of them, but you could literally build anything, any kind of megalithic structure with these things.
Well, if I had to add, I would say, if you go into seeing that light bulb in Dendera, if you look into it, it's this kind of serpent or snake type of energy. And that's actually what this book is all about. It's really about taking water and solar and making hydrogen energy. We actually believe that the ancients had that. Now, you can drink hydrogen water. It's very popular now.
Yeah.
And also you use it for agriculture, which the Egyptians were really well known for. And you can use it for burning anything, if you've ever seen a hydrogen. Yeah. Especially hydrogen gas and HHO. We're kind of specialists on HHO. So I think it was connected with some of that energy technology.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for satisfying my curiosity. I hope that was interesting for you out there as well.
It's a better technology. We should all be using it.
So welcome to our first guest questioner.
Well,
Would you
first
tell
of
us
all,
your name, and do you have a question for a specific panelist or the group?
No, my name is Karen, and it's to all of you.
Great.
Can somebody address the fact that purposely they changed the Hertz music, they lowered the Hertz music, the vibration?
I can start, and I'm sure our friend over there. Actually, 440 is the tuning norm that most instruments have been tuned to. And actually, people were trying to change it back to the Pythagorean tuning of 432. That's not a standard. Would you like to pick up the, yes?
432, if you go Wikipedia scientific pitch, you'll find that it places A at 432 and C at 256. 440 standard, everyone and their mother has probably read about the Nazis and Joseph Goebbels and weaponized frequencies, blah, 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 blah. The thing about that, just to quickly make another point about China, in ancient China, they made sure everyone was in the same pitch to stay unified. So there is these examples of history where a ruler or some kind of standard was imposed, because if you were just the dude on the street who had your own tuning system and had micro tuning and you were just doing different stuff, it might jeopardize the integrity of society. So they couldn't have that. As far as this weaponized 440 thing, look, I've worked with probably tens of thousands of people. I've read every book about this topic. I'm a fan of everyone up here, and I know all of their work prolifically, even if they've never heard of me. I have fully dedicated myself to understanding this, and I can honestly tell you there's nothing under that rock of like 440 is weaponized, Nazis had to do with it. It's more likely that some violinist in like the 1900s tuned their violin a little bit sharp to stand out, and so the person next to them went, hey, I want to tune up too. And so they just kind of tuned up, and then they just said, okay, let's just settle with A440, and then it became standardized. And that is the most likeliest explanation. There's nothing that's weaponizing about a frequency system, but the last point I'll make is I prefer 432 for healing and ambient music, because it just does something for the low-end bass. It does something for the low end where it just opens it up more. And so from a music production standpoint, when you're trying to make relationships, you can't help but feel like, wow, it's optimal Goldilocks zone. So I will say that there is something to this, but music has been performed in concerts and movies and helping people and healing people, and the whole time it's been 440, and we're all okay and we're here, and let's just kind of tone it down a little bit and like re-examine this topic. So I hope that answers a little bit more the question.
Thank you.
Scientific pitch,
Thank you
Wikipedia.
so much.
Verity tuning.
Thank you so much. Yeah, beautifully said. And there's a thing to Italian opera singers. You really want to hit all the notes. They got to tune the orchestra to 432, just because it seems to be a physiological resonance response to it. But I love your point that like there's no such thing as like a bad frequency. There's no such thing as any frequency being wrong. And I treat the same way with geometry. It's like, honestly, if you're looking at the pentagram, he was just talking about it's the geometry of DNA, the body's resonance. Your body is a freaking pentagram, and your root chakra is a pentagonal structure connecting you to the core of the earth. So what happens if you start believing the pentagram is evil? Well, you block your root chakra, you start treating sexuality as the bad thing, and you start disconnecting yourself from the planet. Oops. Oh gosh, so we gotta reclaim some of these things that we make enemy, we make bad, And as we do that, we find ourselves not only healing ourselves, but healing our relationship with peoples and cultures around the world. So, who do we have next here?
Thanks. Yeah. Hello. This is for Robot and Tarkam. I've been looking in today and tomorrow. When is your thing and where is it? Like, I can't find it anywhere.
You go to the website and you click special events, workshops, it's Quantum Harmonics.
Quantum Harmonics.
Quantum Harmonics is Quantum Harmonics Oasis. We're there every day. There's private sessions with vibroacoustic subpacks pumping mechanical sound waves into your body and organs. There's
Beautiful.
private group sessions with ambient music. We have a projector. I think the Laughing Yogi's coming to hang out with us.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be a good vibe. Everyone's invited. Come check us out.
All right. That's it. Thank
And also, I want
Thank
to
you.
if everyone in this room, if you just come to our door and say, "Hey, I was at the panel. Can I come in for like one session?" Robert, should we just give away? Yeah, everyone here has one session.
Free access to San Lorenzo A Vibro Acoustic Therapy Sessions with the Quantum Harmonics crew.
So just come knock on our door and be like, "Hey, I was at the panel. You said something about a free ticket." And
That's right. Don't tell all your friends, please. Just the special offer, just for you. Yeah, Chris.
So just real quick, oh, go ahead.
No, it's you.
On your the 440 thing. So it's just perception control. That's all it is. So it's like getting people to think that Santa's real. You just control the minds of the people through placing programs in society that gets them to think about it, and so they create it. It's that simple. That's like
Yeah, I mean-
99% of the things is just perception control.
That's
all.
probably the shortest way I've ever heard laid out. You know,
That's everything.
what
Everything.
like mass manipulation through marketing techniques, etc. is just like, oh, you just give them a perception that makes them struggle.
Because it's like the soul is like the humans are we're the creators, right? So whatever we see, whatever we focus on, right, is gonna be. And so if you place something in front of someone, whatever it is, a government agenda, a sound frequency, they're gonna end up producing it and creating it because that's what the soul does. So nothing inherently is evil or bad, it's just your interpretation of it. So
If I can bring up, how about the devil's chord? I think that's a great vibration, actually. It's called the devil's chord, but it actually opens up certain levels. Can I hear from you guys or the guy down here about what you think about that?
Yeah. Well, Devil's Chord, by the way, just so all of you out there, I think some of its roots have to do with essentially the sound that would cause you to enter an orgasmic state. Is that, you haven't heard that one?
I didn't hear that one.
I heard that, yeah.
that's Adam's perception.
I'm just looking for that sound all the time. Do you guys want to talk about the Devil's Chord more informed than my
Yeah,
comment?
I want to also respect the rest of the
Yeah,
last
great.
questions. But the thing about the Devil's Chord, for me, it's like anything that wasn't like a distinct octave, third or fifth, like especially the fifth. Like if everyone can just hold this note, like do that. That just sounds sacred. It just sounds godly. So if you put one note down and then do it again, kill him. Not that note. That's not sacred. It has to be the fifth. It has to be that clean, because that's how we're in accordance with God and the crucifixion of Christ and the meaning of his death and the fact that we're here in a church. We have to resonate with the meaning and purpose. So anything other than that was kind of coined the Devil's Chord, but it's basically like a minor or like a sharp or a flat added. And it wasn't the fifth, you know? So if it's not that fifth, then it doesn't have the sacredness there, therefore it must be the other guy. That's from my standpoint of what I've learned.
Thank you, Torkum. Solid answer. Thank you. Okay, who do we have next?
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I had a question about the brainwaves. So I know, like Sarah was talking about hypnosis, and when you go into that hypnosis state, you're in the theta brainwave. And then talking about the gamma wave, which isn't talked about so much that I've seen. Would you say that that's a state when you're channeling information, and how would that differ between receiving information under hypnosis in the theta and channeling information in the gamma?
Nice. So anybody want to speak on different brainwave frequency states and their benefits and/or capacities.
So I'll do that.
Thanks, Ellen.
So again, let's go back to Maxwell Cade's example, and if you're interested, you can look up Mind Mirror and get a pretty good description and see those patterns. And there's one called the Evolved Mind, which has a very heavy theta, but we tend to have all of them going on, just different bands of how much is there, and that tends to be the state, at least that Maxwell Cade had identified as the channeling, connecting to source state. The superconscious mind is another level. At the time that they talked about that one, they didn't have the technology to measure gamma. Now we do, and I wouldn't look at gamma as the channeling state. It's more of the epiphany, creativity, high intense focus state. But it's really hard to like put a label on it and say, well, I'm channeling and I'm there. But that would be my answer.
The work that was done at Stanford, at Academy for Parapsychology and Medicine in the 1970s in California with Alice and Elmer Green showed that all states are involved with channeling. You shouldn't restrict it. Channeling.
Right, and that's the same with Maxwell Cade. It's all of them are there. It's just how, at least in his work, how it's combined. But again, it's hard to define it, I would think.
When we're channeling information, is this coming from interdimensional beings? Is it coming from ascended masters? Is it coming from source?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of the above.
That's
I think
hard
it
for us
depends
to-
on the
It's
channel.
hard for us to tell you that,
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine it definitely depends on the channeler, and you could probably say that maybe some of these different frequency areas within the brain are possibly more or less compatible to talking to certain beings, because
think-
maybe those beings are operating more in those octaves.
You could think of it as a radio frequency. You're tapping in to certain.
Tune it to
Yeah.
whatever we're.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, my name is Katie. Okay, this is kind of a silly question, but I'm wondering what you guys would say. So let's say you're doing like a sound healing thing, and it's the most beautiful sound tone that you have, and you have the one individual and you got the sound or whatever, and you both want this healing, but you hate each other. So like the intention isn't there. Which do you think would win? The sound vibration or the intention?
Ooh. Okay, Chris, and then maybe Josh?
Oh, go ahead, Josh.
No.
Josh, it's over there. Up there. Go ahead, you go.
I'd always say that it's really hard to have a medium that will supersede the intention and the tension between the people. So if you want something to be maximally effective, you're going to be wanting to do it in a situation where there's the least amount of external input that is going to interrupt where you want to be. Sure, it can be a great and amazing tool, and you can probably could find a lot of reconciliation with using it if you are with somebody and there is that amount of tension and you're trying to get beyond that. It could be a good tool for it, but if you want the maximum amount of enjoyment without having to work through that space, take that tone with somebody that is fantastic for you.
I thought you were going to say, give them both ayahuasca, sit them down. Then you can loosen up the intention enough, that...
That is equally valid. I would highly recommend that as well. Bring the sound.
So intention would win then?
I would say the intention would win in that one. Unless the sound is so amazingly loud that every cell in your body just vibrates so hard you become light itself, then I would say the intention always wins.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would add too, it's like with anything, no matter how many crystals, whatever you do, you as the source determine everything. Simple, right? So crystals, sound, it's all up to you. That's the power that you have.
So we're still the most powerful.
Of course, everyone in this room, yes, that's the point. We're all just pretending that we're not. And I'm gonna say we all are. We just have to choose to be, right? So sound and all these things are just ideas within the mind of source.
It's all just tools. It's how you wield
But they're
it
fun.
that counts. Exactly. Okay, thank you so much, Katie. All right, got time for a couple more. Might get all 3 or 4 of you, maybe. We'll see.
Hi,
Be quick.
I'm Ian from the UK. Okay, I'll get.
Oh, but of course.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Ian from the UK. This has been an awesome panel, and it's been absolutely fascinating. Each of you have really brought something really that I've got so many questions for all of you, but today I'm just going to ask a question of Sarah because it's to do with the change of the voice when people are hypnotized, and specifically when people change back to that childhood voice. Now, as I understand it, our vocal cords change, and we would find it very, very difficult to speak as though we were a child. This was raised recently by my ex-wife, who's now a qualified psychologist herself, and she wasn't even in a hypnotic trance, or maybe she did go into a trance, but she was dealing with another psychotherapist and people who she works with. And she said, suddenly, Ian, when I was dealing with this aspect of my trauma, I was speaking as an 8-year-old, and how does that happen? How do we speak as someone when our vocal cords can't make us speak? Something else is going on here.
Right, it really does prove that you can do anything, and you're just quieting your conscious mind a little bit, and when you do that, you access the power within you, and that does happen. So when you bring a person back to, say, a traumatic event in their childhood, they can not only just remember, but they sort of become that child again, and they can speak that way they did as a child again, even though it's not even possible, say, but it is possible. Anything is possible. You have so much power within yourself. And that's why when people are under hypnosis and they're remembering being someone else, it's almost as if they really are that other person during that time. They can remember anything.
That's exactly what my ex-wife said. She said, I was that 8-year-old child. I was speaking as that 8-year-old child. I don't know how it happened, Ian, but it happened. Thank you.
That's why it's so healing.
Thank you. And of course, this can be harnessed, if you really tap into your other lifetimes, you can find that you have quite a lot of self inside of you. You just need to adapt to these parts of yourself, and you trust me, you will eventually become enlightened, no problem. Just, please, carry on.
My name is Alcione. I'll just describe myself as musical. So I'm wondering, and this is a question for any of you, is there any substantial difference in the material or spiritual, individual or social health effects of the different tunings? So of course you know that the Western standard, I guess is the world standard, is equal tuning or equal temperament now, but that's a very artificial method of tuning. So I'm wondering if you could say if you know of any differences in the effects on people of the different tuning systems.
You want to take that one, John? I mean, either one of us can probably answer that. I'll give it to you. Oh, sure, yeah, we can do that. I would say this also goes into an intentionality thing, that there's, all sound can be used for healing if there is the right set and setting with it, because every note that you have in a 432 versus every note you have in 440 can be put together either in a way that is profoundly transcendent or completely disharmonic and dissonant from each other. And really what it is there the harmony, or is there something that causes that resistance? But in terms of which to utilize and why I would utilize certain, like 432, is because there is meaning conjoined with mathematics. If we have mathematics and if we have numbers and we don't ascribe meaning to them, then it is meaningless, essentially. So I always try to pair things within known philosophies, within known, like, let's say, like numbers within 440, you'll find, let's say, 432, you have 216, the octave below, and 108, the octave below that. That number 108 will appear all over the globe and in so many different traditions because the type of mathematics that they were ascribing and pairing with the structure of reality, let's say. So many people's had a lot of numerology baked into how the universe was constructed, certain things about consciousness, certain things about the cosmos, and they are universal constants. So I always like to pair things to that for that reason in general, because there is a depth and a meaning behind it. But I think, as long as there's harmony and as long as there's not disharmony, you can do anything with any frequencies you have.
So you're saying basically that death metal at 432 versus Robot Coach at 440, right?
If you like death metal, it has a positive effect.
Thank you.
It does.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Research on this, it's not classical music that's good for your brain. It's the music that you resonate with. It could be punk or ska. So
Thank you.
that's actually true. And the other
I
thing
have
is,
nothing against death metal.
you can also put plants in a room.
Metal drummer.
Really?
I started out as a death metal drummer, funnily.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for your question. We are actually
Great
out of time. I just want to check in the back. If they want us to go a couple minutes over, I could take these last two questions.
Very short.
Are we okay with that? Yeah? Okay, let's keep rolling. Bring it in. Tell us who you are.
Oh, wonderful conference anyways. And somebody of you can answer me this question. I listen music and I see colors and shapes moving. You just did that sound at the color that I saw is the one behind you. And I saw a flat line in that color. So somebody can explain me that? I think I am in the right place.
Yeah, it looks like Desiree
I was
and
gonna say
Chris.
sonoluminescence. So it's where sound will create light. So there's this crab or something, some awesome sea creature that it hits the water so hard, it makes a sound, and then it creates color. Because sound and light are the same thing. Again, it's just different frequencies, different variations. And again, I know it's repetitive, but in the medium, in the ether. So
Well, they're not exactly the same thing.
well, they're not the same thing, but they stem from the
They emanate
same,
from the
same source.
foundational
Right.
principles or
Right.
phenomena.
Yes.
Very
They
good.
manifest outwardly in very distinct different ways.
And-
For example, red wavelength is 550 nanometers, but you don't
Yes.
measure sound waves in nanometers. You measure sound waves in hertz.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
At best, anything color sound related is artist interpretive, and there's no literal intersection or science or agreed upon system that says this is the sound and color of this light. It's interpretive, so mostly.
Now we're changing the light colors in here.
Oh no, this is. Wait till you hear my dimensions and time talk.
Okay. Okay, I'm excited.
But I was gonna say real quick, just so we get to the other question. I was sleeping one time and I heard a sound. At the same moment I heard the sound, it was pitch black. I saw light. So there's a direct correlation that we'll have to get into later. It's real. What you're experiencing is real.
What about for the shapes? So the shapes, they move.
Well, you have sound, light, and then it's gonna come into a shape. You're seeing it all at one time.
Actually, of course, as they were saying, it could be just geometries and energies that you're pulling in that resonate with certain frequencies. But we mentioned something earlier, and that's cymatics, and no one had really detailed that. And we do have that in our book. And so these are two different shapes. Every tone, this is from Hans Jenny and others who have picked up after him. He was a Swiss mathematician. So this is like a 38 hertz, and this is a 64 hertz. So technically, sound is geometry, and geometry is sound. And you can get more into that. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Also, since you guys might bolt out of here in a minute, I want to just give you all a heads up that the next things coming up this evening, you have myself, Adam Apollo, 4 o'clock, Starfleet gamifying planetary transformation. It's all about essentially achieving planetary stewardship. And then at 6 o'clock, unfortunately, Chris and Desiree and JJ and Alan Steinfeld are at the same time. That's from 6 to 7:30. You can find Chris in the Marina Room, and you can find JJ and Desiree in the Plaza Room. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, you can catch a giant tuning fork sound vortex with Mr. Joshua Reef over there. That's in the Chakra Room, pretty easy to remember. And then Saturday at noon, at 12 o'clock to 1:30 in the Marina Room, you can find Alan Evans. She'll be leading a workshop called Raising Your Vibe, Aligning with Your Authentic Self. And then essentially we've got Sunday February 11th at 2 o'clock. Joshua also will be doing a Tuning Forks Evolved experience in Century C. And then finally on Monday, you'll have a 2 o'clock workshop with her. She's doing The Unseen, How You Are More Than Your Physical Body. And I'll also be doing a talk that evening on the spiritual science of Starfleet. So did I cover everybody? Oh, and Sarah, I don't have your, yeah.
That's a
When are you speaking?
Sunday at 4. I'm going to talk about how to activate the ancient secrets within you, and I'm going to show actual clips of my clients under hypnosis and all the amazing stuff that's come through.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, and what? The meditation room?
It's on this floor.
Uh-huh.
In the hallway.
And then and what's happening there? What?
So you can experience the Monroe Sound Science.
Ah.
Yeah, you just go in there for 10, 20 minutes.
Thank you. So you can do that anytime over the weekend in the meditation room?
It's free.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I hope you guys took notes. This is this is an amazing crew, so you definitely want to catch more of them. Final question of the sound healing and frequency panel. What's your name, sir?
I'm Sebastian. Thank you all for this wonderful talk. It was amazing and very informative. I really loved I really appreciated how you talked about frequencyism and how all the beliefs that are around 432 and 528, etc., that are thrown at us all the time. But I'm still interested in having your thoughts on the solfeggio's frequencies and Emoto's research on water and how some of the solfeggio frequencies have an impact on us, on the water and the sacred geometry behind all that.
May I take this one? I had a debate with Leonard Horowitz. He's the proponent of solfeggio frequency school of thought. Up until Leonard Horowitz's book on solfeggio frequencies, all the solfeggio ever was do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, di, do. It's a solfege scale. It was a technique taught from nuns to students in order to find where middle C is. When he wrote his book, he created the connotation between solfeggio frequencies. So any copy-paste related stuff that you find on it goes back to his contribution on the field. But the claims he makes about Gregorian monks, about ancient specific frequencies that happen to end in whole tones, 0.00. Gentleman earlier asked about Pythagorean tuning, just intonation tuning. Just intonation tuning has different relationships between the notes, whereas equal tempered music, it's 0.00, 0.00, 0.432, 0.00, 440, 0.0. So the idea that the ancients, before they even had a way to record or measure cycles per second, let alone having a measurement called cycles per second, were able to store all these frequencies that are exactly 0.00 solfeggio frequencies, 928, 528, 936. So in essence, anytime there's one person with one source, with one information coming, we have to kind of look at that. As far as Emoto and his work, I will say this. Some of it's interesting, some of it's been disproven. They took one of the examples of something similar to Emoto's work, which I only do this to shed more light and include nuance. I'm not trying to be a contrarian all the time, I swear to God. The thing is, they took plants, and they put them in 5 different groups. One that were spoken to, one that was yelled to, one that was cussed at, one that was played music, and one that had nothing. The one that was spoken to, whether positive or negative, F you, I love you, I hate you, grew the same. The one that had music depended on the intensity of the music. The heavy metal plants did the best because of the syncopation and rhythm. Because it shakes the stems and leaves. And when it's shaking, because of air propagation, it's going, oh yeah, I feel good, I'm dancing. So that plant does better. Which plant did the worst? The one that had no input at all, neither music, nor cuss words, nor anything. The plant that had F you suck, did better than the plant that had nothing.
Wow. Wow, bravo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative. All right, thank you all so much for your time today. Thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Come see us over the weekend. Thank you, everyone. Oh, and DVDs will be ready tomorrow sometime. Saturday sometime, tomorrow. So, thank you, everybody.
Yes! Oh, I recognize